On today's show, the Houston Rockets picking up the Summer League dub against the San Antonio Spurs. Jabari Smith and Tari Eason absolutely clamp city in this game. Bari and Tari getting it done on the defensive end of the floor. Also, Jabari Smith's best offensive game of Summer League. Tari Eason continues to impress on that end of the floor as well. And some really impressive guard play out of Daishen Nix and Josh Christopher. We're going to break it all down for you right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
The Houston Rockets select Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
Every time I step on that floor, I'm coming.
You're getting somebody who's going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, somebody who's going to come in and compete from day one.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays, host of the State of the Rockets podcast, as well as the founder of ClutchCityControlRoom.com. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, and the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So go to YouTube, search Locked On Rockets, like, comment, subscribe. What was your favorite thing about the Rockets win against the San Antonio Spurs? Did you like Jabari Smith's performance? Tari Eason? What about Daishen Nix? Let me know in the YouTube comments. So let's break down what went on in this game. Jabari Smith Jr., his best overall Summer League game to this point. Tari Eason continues to impress. Is he the steal of the NBA draft? Daishen Nix, a pair of back-to-back really solid performances. I said not to overreact to his performance in Game 1 of Summer League, and look at that. He's making me look like a smart man. I love that. We're going to break down all of that. Let's start with just kind of some of the game flow itself and Jabari Smith's performance in this one, because this really was his best Summer League game so far of the three that he's played. He really looked like, he's continued to look better and better across each game. It feels like every minute that he's on the floor, he starts to look better and better, right? He started in the second half of the very first game against the Orlando Magic. In this game, though, he really felt like he started to slow things down and really let things come to him. He finished the night 19 points, 9 rebounds, had an assist, had a couple steals, had a block, 6 of 12 shooting overall, 3 of 5 from downtown, and then 4 of 5 from the charity stripe. Just really solid all-around offensive game from Jabari Smith Jr. And I got the chance to ask Coach Higgins after the game what he thought about Jabari's offensive production in this one.
How'd you feel about Jabari's production today offensively?
I felt great about it. He was able to get to his spots simpler just by kind of playing a little bit simpler, taking a little bit pressure off himself, which led to the game coming to him easier. And then it led to him starting to make some physical plays, some effort plays, like his offensive rebound at the end. Like, it was just the way he decided to put his energy level into the game was my favorite part.
Couldn't agree more with Coach Higgins. It feels like Jabari let the game kind of come to him in this one, and it does feel like the guards especially, shout out to Daishen Nix, we'll talk about a little bit later in the episode, it does feel like the guards are doing a much, much better job of delivering the basketball to him in places where he can then, make the right move, make the right read, be effective with it, getting to his spots. The very first triple of the game for Jabari Smith came off of a very simple pick and pop play where he set the screen for Daishen Nix and he popped out to the perimeter. Daishen drove hard to the rim, and he delivered the bounce pass back out to Jabari Smith through the pocket, through the little window in the defense beautifully. And having sat in on, a little bit of Rockets practice over this Summer League stint, that's something that they emphasized, right? Is the ability to run their actions offensively and collapse the defense into the paint and then deliver the ball back out to the perimeter, right? They spent a good moment on figuring out, all right, how do we have this guy here? You set the screen this way. And when you go in, you have to deliver the pass in this little window right here at this exact moment. So it's cool to see Daishen Nix kind of capitalizing on that knowledge. It's cool to see Jabari Smith Jr. being put in positions where he can be successful. And offensively, it felt like he was really kind of coming into his own, getting some easy opportunities. Again, 60% shooting from downtown, right? Hit 3 triples. That's huge for Jabari. But not only that, he got to the free throw line a few times, right? I think that there are legitimate concerns about his handle. I'm not going to pretend that there's not. He had one opportunity in transition where he got the outlet pass and he had basically a free breakaway layup and he couldn't handle the rock, right? Turned it over because he lost his handle. There was another one where, he kind of bobbled the ball a little bit. So the handle, especially at high speed in transition, not necessarily the most fluid, not the best, right? But he's still got an effective handle, right? When he puts the ball on the floor, especially off the catch, that's something that really stood out to me in this game, is his ability to attack off the catch. When somebody kicks the ball out to him at the 3-point line, he can take that 1-2 dribble in and either pull up for the jumper or just a couple strong dribbles towards the rim and then swing it to the next man. He's very capable of that, and I think he's got kind of underrated court vision at this point because he constantly is looking for the kick ahead pass in transition. He's constantly looking to make the right read offensively. He had one where he pulled down an offensive rebound over 2 guys, surveyed the floor for a moment, and then found Ty Washington, hit Ty, who was cutting towards the rim, and then Ty finished with an easy layup right at the cup. So I'm impressed by the offensive side of things for Jabari, but defense is where he made the game change. And that's going to be the area where, regardless of if he's delivering offensively, right, if the shot's not falling, he is still going to be able to impact and change the game defensively. This Rockets team gave up 34 points in the second quarter of this game. They allowed just 11 points in the third quarter and then 19 points in the final frame for a total of 30 second half points. And Jabari Smith Jr. was a huge reason for that. Jabari Smith, but I'm not going to give him all the credit, right? This Rockets team, Tari Eason was playing great defense. Daishen, Josh Christopher, the entire team really locked in defensively in that second half. But the anchor for their defense is Jabari Smith Jr., right? Because he is the guy who is kind of especially playing at that 5 spot at one of those 2 forward spots. He's lower in the defense, so he sees everything. His communication is out of this world. In this game, I had the opportunity to sit right on the baseline. So in the second half, when the Rockets flipped things and their defense was on my side of the court, I could hear everything, all the communication. Jabari Smith is constantly talking on defense throughout a play. He's calling out switches. He's yelling at guys. He's quarterbacking the defense. And even during dead ball situations, there was a moment where the Spurs were getting ready to inbound the ball after it got tipped out of bounds or something. And Jabari was communicating with Ty Washington. They were on the weak side of the floor, and he was communicating with Ty. He was like, hey, we're going to handle the switch this way. Like, that level of communication and IQ defensively does not grow on trees. And for him to be able to really quarterback the Rockets defense that way and really have his mindset on being that vocal leader defensively, it rubs off on his teammates, right? And we saw the entire Rockets team really buy in defensively in that second half. And it's not just his vocal, leadership defensively. He leads by example defensively, right? He changes the game for the Rockets on the defensive side of the floor. Just the sheer intimidation factor, his size, his length near the rim. He changes so many shots by giving really great contests, whether it's out on the perimeter, whether it's right there at the rim. He gets his hands up. He contests well. He moves his feet well defensively. He had that one block on a drive where it looked like he kind of got beat, and he was still able to get back, recover, and not, swat the ball out of bounds. Little block party Bari for you, if you will. I think there's the one caveat that I have for his defensive acumen so far is it feels like there's times where he does a really stellar job on the actual defensive possession itself, whether it's out on the perimeter, whether it's on the interior guarding and then contesting. And then sometimes I think he gets caught a little bit ball watching right after the defensive possession is over, right? Like there were a couple times where he had a really solid contest, like out on the perimeter, moved his feet well, stuck in front of his defender, got his hand up, great contest, forced a missed shot, and then didn't immediately turn around to secure the rebound. The one that really stands out in my mind was he had one on the left wing in the first half where then the ball made it bad. The player who shot the ball, I can't remember the Spurs player name, unfortunately. The player who shot the ball immediately ran back in and got his own rebound off of again, was a beautiful contest by Jabari, but he didn't finish off the possession by securing a strong defensive rebound. So it's a small caveat at this point. I'm not going to blow it out of proportion. I'm not going to say it's a huge, red flag or anything. It's just one of those awareness things that, hey, you got to finish off. You might have defended the possession beautifully for 90% of it, right? But you got to close things out with getting a strong defensive rebound. When he's not part of the action, when he's not actively involved in defending somebody, Jabari does his work early. Like, he is immediately looking for a body, boxing out, and making sure he's in great position to get the defensive board. But I do feel like it's just another step to be aware that when he is actively guarding somebody, he needs to also be ready to turn around and grab that defensive rebound if he forces a miss. So very, very impressed with both sides of what we saw from Jabari Smith Jr. in this game, his breakout summer league performance, if you will. Coming up, we're going to talk about the other Rockets in this game who stood out. Tari Eason continues to be an absolute beast in summer league, the only player in summer league averaging over 15 points and 10 rebounds per contest. We're going to talk about him. We'll talk about Daishen Nix and his impressive performance quarterbacking the Rockets offense. We're going to get there in just a quick moment after a message from our friends over at Built Bar, because look, when it comes to protein bars, you got to check out Built Bar. They're the number one protein bar on the market, and for very good reason. Every single bar that they offer is coated in 100% delicious chocolate. They're not gritty or chalky like other protein bars on the market. They've got so many incredible flavors to choose from. You got strawberry, raspberry, salted caramel, mint brownie, peanut butter, coconut brownie chunk, plain coconut. I can go on and on and on. The list it's endless. My personal favorite is coconut brownie chunk, though. I think that's the best one. Every single bar is low cal, low sugar, high protein, high fiber. Amazing if you're on a keto diet. Amazing if you're trying to cut back a little bit, lose a little bit of weight. You can check them out. Just go to built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your very next order of the best tasting protein bars on the market. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. We're going to talk a little bit about Tari Eason here in just a second, but kind of want to talk a little bit about the just general game flow of this one, right? The Rockets gave up that, insane 34-point second quarter to the San Antonio Spurs, which, side note on the Spurs, Malachi Branham is a baller. He's going to be really good for the Spurs. He had 20 points, 6 boards, couple of assists, couple steals, 8 of 18 shooting, 3 of 7 from 3. The Spurs, got another good one with him. So kudos to them for picking him up. But just the general game flow here, it was so impressive to see the Rockets again really dig into the defensive side of things, especially in that second half. Because even though Jabari Smith, as I mentioned in the first segment, right, even though he was the one being so vocal and really quarterbacking things, maybe it starts with one player, but it takes an entire team, right? And that was Coach Higgins' message after the game, is that it's never just one guy, right? And it's never just him as the coach, because we were asking him questions like, what changed in the second half defensively? And his whole point was they bought in, right? They brought the right energy. They changed their mentality, their energy, their physicality in the second half. And I do think a big part of that is the communication element, right? Going back into the locker room at halftime, understanding, hey, we just gave up a 34-point second quarter. Why? We have more than enough talent to stop these guys in their tracks defensively. Why did we give up 34 points in one quarter? And then they came out and held the Spurs to 11 points in the third quarter. And they continued to build on that. A 19-point fourth quarter for the Spurs, again, holding them to 30 points in just the second half of play. And that was buy-in from everybody. Jabari quarterbacking things, absolutely. But other guys are communicating out there. Tari is one of them who's out there communicating on defense. And it really did feel like, again, in that second half, the communication on defense and the intensity was like ratcheted up to 11. And that's how the Rockets were able to come away from the win in this one. At one point, the Rockets trailed 18. They were down 18 just before the half, and Daishen Nix had a really strong drive to the rim, finished at the cup, then he hit a three-pointer, then another play down, they get in transition, Jabari Smith Jr. finishes the transition layup, and then they set Jabari up for a three-pointer. That was a nice little 10-point swing there to get the Rockets to cut the lead to under 10 before halftime. They were down 8 going into the half. So that little push at the end of the second quarter really set them up and gave them the momentum to get back into the game in the third quarter. But defense is how they won this game, right? Even though they gave up a ton in that second quarter, their offense was a little shaky at times in this game. But because their defense was so locked in that third quarter and just in general that second half, that's how they were able to come away with the win in this one. And a big proponent of what the Rockets did in this game was Tari Eason, who continues to look like the absolute steal of the draft at pick 17 for the Houston Rockets. He had 22 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 9 of 16 shooting from the floor, 2 of 3 overall from downtown, and then 2 of 3 at the charity stripe. I mean, I am like, there's a reason I wanted Tari Eason, right? Like, early in the draft process, I was like, this is the guy. This is the guy for the Rockets with pick 17 at the top of my board, the guy that I wanted, like, number one besides Jabari, right? But, for pick 17 was Tari. And this is why he is so versatile on the basketball floor. And here's a big thing, right? Throughout the pre-draft process, one of the things that popped up about Tari was his supposed lack of basketball IQ. Haven't seen that yet. He plays he plays incredibly smart basketball. I don't know where that is. Like, offensively, I kind of thought that it in game one, I did think he tunnel visioned a little bit. I think he was being a little overly aggressive offensively. I think he really wanted to go out there and show what he could do. He had the 9 3-pointers, right? Like, that's not necessarily his game, right? These past 2 games, though, he's playing his game, and it looks so damn good. Like, he's going out there. And one, the defensive side of things, right? The length between him and Jabari Smith causes so many problems defensively for the opposing team, because they're able to cut off driving lanes. They're able to switch effectively multiple positions. He can guard out on the perimeter. He can guard inside. And then he's got this ridiculous wingspan, so he's just constantly contesting anything anybody puts up near him. There was a drive where one of the Spurs players drove in, and Tari had like the weirdest contest, but it worked. And it was at the top of the key. Spurs player drove in with their right hand, right? And so it's a right side drive. And normally, right, if you're trying to contest that right side drive, you'd probably go up with your left hand to contest it. Tari had this weird, like, he jumped to contest it, and he kind of started with his left hand, and then he was in the air long enough that he swung back through with his right hand, and it was kind of like this weird, like, choppy looking contest, but it forced the miss, right? And it's those types of, like, effort plays on defense that make him who he is as a player, just putting forth that insane amount of 110% energy at all times. And so not only defensively is he getting it done, on the glass he's getting it done, he's absorbing so many rebounds, but he's also active on the offensive side of things, right? He had 5 offensive boards in this game. Like, that is absurd. And his entire offensive package is much more than I thought it would be at this point. And what's really impressed me, like, he's got the ability to put the ball on the floor, to finish at the rim. He's got the 3-point shooting, which feels like very, very comfortable right now, especially from the corners, right? Shout out to if you put on the jersey 17 as a Houston Rocket, you're going to be a fan favorite. You're going to be able to defend at a high level, and you're going to be able to shoot corner threes. Shout out to Mario Elie, shout out to PJ Tucker, and shout out to Tari Eason, right? That's a long lineage of the dudes who are rocking 17 for the Houston Rockets. Offensively, though, his playmaking has really stood out to me. He makes good decisions, both in transition and in the half court, right? Finding the next right pass, finding the next guy to keep the offense flowing. And I think that was like the kind of standout difference between game 1 and then game 2 and 3 is game 2 and 3. It feels like he's playing his game, right? He's letting the game kind of come to him. He isn't forcing the issue too much offensively. He's not trying to showcase himself too much. He's just relaxed, playing his game, attacking when he can, getting out in transition when he can, causing havoc on the defensive side of the floor. He had that one pick where the Spurs had just inbounded the basketball, and Tari forced a turnover in the backcourt and then passed it over to Daishen Nix. Daishen drove it in and dished it back to Tari. It was a nice little, 2-on-1 that they created after Tari forced the steal in the backcourt. And it's those little moments like that are going to, like, over the course of a game, those are winning basketball plays. And Tari Eason is, to this point, like, I mean, you could make the argument he's been the Rockets' best player in Summer League, right? Because Jabari had some struggles in game 1. Game 2 offensively didn't quite deliver, even though the shot profile was good, couldn't hit the shots, and then finally really put it all together, the defensive side and the offensive side in game 3. But as far as consistency of play, Tari Eason maybe has been the Rockets' most consistent, best player in Summer League so far, and that's why he's looking like he's the steal of the draft, because he is outplaying everybody. Again, he is the only player in Summer League right now through 3 games averaging over 15 points a contest. He's right at 6.7, or 16.7, I should say. And then over 10 rebounds per game, which he's averaging 11.7 rebounds per contest. That's better. Those numbers are better than Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Stewart, and Mark Williams. That is, like, Tari Eason's outperforming guys who were selected ahead of him and guys who are coming back for their second stint of Summer League in Isaiah Stewart, Beef Stew over there from the Detroit Pistons. So really impressed with what we saw out of Tari Eason. His game, like the Rockets may have lucked into a long-term starting fit at their small forward spot. And I had reservations, right? I thought the small forward spot was going to be a lock to be Eric Gordon or Jae'Sean Tate this season. And while I still think that's going to be the case, Tari Eason could very easily be the starting 3 at some point this season. I don't think it's going to happen on opening night, because I think there's still guys with a bit more experience ahead of him in the lineup, in the rotation. But he could very well be the long-term starting fit next to Jabari and Alperen Sengun in the Rockets front court. And that is an insane front court to think about for years to come. So with that, I want to get to final thoughts from this game. Still want to talk about Daishen Nix in the final segment. We're going to get there in just one moment. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, before I talk about Daishen Nix a little bit, I do want to run back a clip that has to do with both Daishen Nix and Tari Eason from the post-game media availability after this one. So let's run that back right now.
So, like, playing with Eason, what does he bring to the court?
Tari, he's a hard worker, and that's what everybody wants on the team. Somebody who works hard, plays defense, plays offense, can drive the ball, can shoot and make open shots, and that's what I'm pretty sure every organization wants.
Would you say he has better hair than me?
Not at all.
Reporter Tari Eason, hard at work. Look, I'm going to be completely honest. Tari is giving Josh Christopher a run for his money as the most charismatic member of this Houston Rockets team. The other day in practice, we were interviewing him, asking him some questions, and he's a little expressive with his hands. Like, he moves his hands around a lot when he's talking, and he bumped our phones a couple times, because you know how the media scrums work. You see the videos from it. We're like holding our phones right up at the players, videotaping, audio recording, whatever. And he bumped a couple of the phones a couple times, and like on the 3rd or 4th time that he did it, he looked down and he kind of goes, "Oh, sorry," and he reacts and he goes, "I'm sorry, my hands are so big," and like, he was so beside himself with it. Came across so genuine. And not only that, right, after every media scrum that we do with Tari Eason, where he's got guys around him asking him questions, he shakes the hand of every reporter in the media availability session. He did it at practice. He did it right after the game. Immense amount of respect for this young man who is raised right, who has, the utmost amount of respect for those around him. Seriously, might be the most charismatic member of this Houston Rockets team. Him and Josh Christopher are right there neck and neck at this point. But I figured I'd run that clip back because it's just a ton of fun. Let's talk a little Daishen Nix now, who, again, I said after his bad game 1 to not overreact to his performance there, right? We've seen what he was able to do in the G League. We saw some flashes of what he was able to do with the Houston Rockets. And he finished this game in an incredibly strong way. He had 18 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, 7 of 15 shooting. Also shot 3 of 5 from behind the three-point line. He and Jabari Smith combining for 6 of the Rockets' 10 three-pointers in this game. Overall, a really, really solid night for Daishen Nix, orchestrating the offense, putting guys in positions to be successful, kind of towing that line between being aggressive offensively and looking for his shot, as well as distributing the basketball. Pardon me. Distributing the basketball and finding other guys, finding guys in the right spots to be successful on the floor. And I got the chance at practice the other day to ask Coach Higgins about that. And this kind of stems back to the second Rockets Summer League game. Into the game, there was a moment where Daishen waved off Josh Christopher and set up something else. And so I asked Coach Higgins about that and what it means for Daishen Nix.
Daishen's not the biggest vocal guy, but his basketball intelligence, basketball IQ is very, very high. You wouldn't know it because he doesn't always open his mouth. When he opens his mouth, it's decisions like those, and if you pay attention to it and watch him, he's putting guys in a lot of positions to be successful. And the more he trusts himself to do that, the more his teammates listen to it, it just helps the team. I mean, there's a reason he's the point guard of this team. There's a reason.
There is a reason he is the point guard for this team, right? That is the coach saying there is a reason that he's the point guard for this team. And I do think that things helped kind of shift a little bit in game 2 and subsequently in game 3 for Daishen as he got a little bit more comfortable with these guys. He spoke after the game basically saying that, kind of talking about being that embracing more of a vocal leadership role, which Coach mentioned, right? Saying that he's not the most vocal guy. I asked about how this coaching staff is helping him find his voice, right? Helping him, grow into that leadership role offensively. And he spoke about the fact that having Coach Mahmoud Abdel Fattah on the roster really does help him because he's got that prior established connection with him from the G League. So he's got that confidence in him as a player to put him in the right positions to help him feel like he's doing the right things. And again, what we've seen out of Daishen so far through the G League, through these few Summer League games, he understands how to run an offense, right? He is a legitimate point guard. And Ty Washington is as well. But I do think that you look at, Ty Washington over these last couple games, not to say that he's had like bad games, but Daishen has outshined him in these past couple games, right? Tonight in this one, Ty Washington had 8 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 4 of 10 shooting from the floor. Still a solid night of production for Ty Washington, but those who were immediately ready to throw Ty Washington ahead of Daishen Nix in the Rockets rotation, I was like, pump your brakes. Daishen, to me, is going to be the de facto backup point guard this next season for the Houston Rockets. He's going to be the guy getting 12 to 15 minutes a night, backing up Kevin Porter Jr., soaking up those true legitimate backup point guard minutes. Ty Washington, will probably be the guy that probably spends a little bit of time at the G League level so that he can get some burn. Very similar to how Josh Christopher did this past Rocket season where he went down to the G League for a brief stint, spent some time down there, that kind of thing. So with Daishen Nix, impressed with his game, like what we saw out of him. I do think that overall he needs to work on that. He needs to work on his leadership, right? If you're in the point guard position, you've got to be confident in the decisions that you're making on the floor and vocalizing those decisions to your team. So that's what I'm going to be looking for out of Daishen Nix, depending on if he plays more Summer League games or not. That's kind of what I'm going to be paying attention to. Can he keep this up? Can he be consistent? Because when he was with the Rockets this past season, I think there were times where he was a bit too tentative offensively, right? Where maybe he was out there and he was like, oh, I'm just a G League kid. Like, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I'm just going to come out here. I'm going to set other guys up. I'm not going to look for mine. Daishen's at his best when he's being aggressive offensively, right? When he is looking to drive into the paint, get those drive and kick opportunities, set up for his teammates. That's when he's at his best, not when he's just kind of walking the ball up and he's like, all right, here you go. Toss the ball into the post. Let somebody else let somebody else start the action. No. And then his 3-point shot looks a lot better. Like, he has put so much work in that 3-point shot. The quick release is fantastic. He had one where he just dribbled up, started to kind of set up the action offensively, and the defense sagged off him a bit. And he was like, all right, fine, I'll just pull it. And he pulled the 3 and knocked it down immediately. Loved that aggressiveness from Daishen Nix. Elsewhere in this game, Josh Christopher, yet another solid performance in this one. 18 points on 6 of 13 shooting, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks. He had a monster block in this game that he had like zero business getting. In fact, he went on social media afterwards and was like talking about like if the refs even were going to blow the whistle calling it a foul, because he got a lot of body on that insane block that he had. He had a couple poster dunks in this game. I can't say poster dunks, breakaway, like in transition, open court dunks. He had one to cap the game off, like the cherry on top of this one for the Rockets at the very, very end. They forced the turnover on the other. They forced the turnover on the other end. outlet pass to Josh. He gets it in the open court with like 15 seconds left in the game and just absolutely yams it home. The Spurs had 25 turnovers in this game. The Rockets, off of those turnovers, I want to make sure I can get the stat correct here. If my scoreboard will actually load. Do I have my points off turnovers here? I don't have my points off turnovers. Where's my points off turnovers stat? Oh, man. All right. My Chrome extension is bugging. All right. That's not cool. I'm going to blame it on it being a summer league box score, because normally I have this awesome Chrome extension that like breaks down extended stats for me. And it's not here right now, which is unfortunate. But the Rockets forced 25 turnovers against the San Antonio Spurs. That is an impressive number, right? Defensively, they were getting after it. They were making the Spurs super uncomfortable with the basketball, creating a lot of opportunities for them to get those easy transition buckets on offense. And I do think that that's going to be an area that we see change a lot this season with the addition of Lionel Hollins on the coaching staff, with the addition of guys like Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, with guys like Josh Christopher, KJ Martin, Jae'Sean Tate, Jalen Green, KPJ, all these guys another year under their belts defensively. This Rockets team is going to be so much better defensively, which will then allow them the opportunity to utilize the fact that they are a young run and gun team to get out in transition and get those easy transition opportunities, right? To score the basketball at a high level with these insane athletes that want to get out and run and gun and attack in transition. So we saw that on display in this game. Josh Christopher, a big part of that, felt like his defense was really kind of out of the world in this out of this world in this game, really making his presence felt on that side of the floor. I did like that they started with Ty Washington in the starting lineup over Anthony Lamb. It felt like having their 5 best players out there on the floor was a lot more conducive to to maximizing the ability of all 5 guys on the court, right? Having that second, or having a tertiary ball handler, I should say, out there in Ty Washington, another guy who kind of embodies more of that pure point guard personality, who can really create at a high level. Having 2 of those guys on the floor in Ty and Josh Christopher really helped this Rockets team, I feel like, offensively get into a flow, get into a rhythm. And it really showed best in the second half, in that third quarter, when their defense also started to match the intensity, the ability of what they were taking care of offensively. Really impressed with their third summer league game, right? This was a San Antonio Spurs team that was playing some really good summer league basketball, and the Rockets came out, and especially in that second half, it made them look like chumps, right? Beat them by 13. And I will say that during the pregame routine, which I think, because technically the Rockets were the home team in this one, maybe they got to select the pregame music, but there was a lot of like Houston-based music being bumped pregame, and at one point, like, Tops Drop came on, and I was like, oh, all right, Rockets are winning by 20 if they're going to play Tops Drop in the arena right before the game. So that was cool. Just random sidebars there. But with that, those are final thoughts from this game. Third summer league game in the books for the Houston Rockets. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcast. That's Apple, Spotify, Google, the Odyssey app, free and available on all platforms. We're also on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Locked on Rockets, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know your thoughts about this third summer league game for the Houston Rockets. What was your favorite part of this game? I do read each and every comment every single day, but as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked on Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.